Hey there, and welcome back to the second week of the Artist Way for me. I just finished my morning pages, and if you remember in the last video I actually mentioned that I was thinking about going from 2 pages down to 1 page, because I kind of felt like it was just too much. However, I do have to retract that statement. I actually caught COVID for a week. Not fun, but for this week I couldn't do anything. Like, most days I really could not do anything besides lay in bed and breathe. And then when I started to slowly get back into things, the morning pages were one of the first things I picked up again. And man, not realizing or like not being able to do them and then being able to do them again really changed my perspective. And also, for those days I just pulled through, and there were multiple times where I would write like roughly 1 page or like even 1.5 page of just, I don't want to call it bullshit, but just random things where I'm like, okay, no big revelations or anything. Basically, like a lot of times I would just be writing about, oh, I need to do this and this and this for work, but like those were already things that I had written down on my to-do list the day before. So it was like, okay, cool, nothing new there. However, oftentimes the last half page, suddenly I was, I had a revelation and I was like, damn, like those 2 or 3 lines are absolutely worth the not so impressive stuff I wrote before. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna keep doing that. Another thing that I also noticed was if my thoughts are basically running in circles about like one thing, like for example, 2 days ago I think I had a phone call I was pretty nervous about, so the first page or something was literally just, oh, I don't want to do this, I'm nervous, I'm gonna say this, and if she says this then I'm gonna say this, and if this happens I'm gonna do this, and then this, but if this happens, that kind of stuff. And then after, I think like 1.5 pages is really like the moment when I'm like, okay, something is up here. Because then I was like, you know what? You're absolutely wasting a lot of time and energy on this. So that's when I don't know, like, I don't want to say I wasn't nervous anymore, but like, I was not as nervous anymore, Like, it was just, you know what? Yeah, I'm nervous, but it's really not that deep. Just call them and see what happens, basically. And I love that. So the 2 morning pages will for sure stay, at least for now. But now let's get to the contents of the second week of the book. One thing that stood out to me was the fact that the author once again calls your creativity like your inner child, or something adjacent to that. Like, my inner child is what stuck in my head. And it's still, she already did that in the first chapter, and it still helps me to understand her points better. Like in this chapter she talks about crazy makers, I believe they're called in English. So for example, someone in your life who's basically jealous of your creative journey is what the author says, and because of that they give you a bad feeling about your own creative journey. I don't really have anyone like that in my real life. Like, all my friends are pretty supportive, and a lot of my friends are artists themselves, so none of them make me feel bad. However, my negative self-talk sure does. So the fact that the author says that those people, the crazy makers, could be considered bullies, like your creativity is an inner child, and those crazy makers, or in my case, my negative self-talk, are basically just bullies. Like, for example, if I had a child in real life, I wouldn't force my child to hang out with bullies. I wouldn't just let my kid get bullied. So for my creativity, that means that, I take care of it like a child. So if I had any people that would make me feel bad about my creativity, I would maybe distance myself from them or like talk about it with them. However, for my negative self-talk, it basically means that I've actually started to, sometimes when that negative self-talk comes up, I view it as like a preteen bully. Like, I don't know, if you just hear, oh, you're not good enough, or, oh, this really sucks, and you're just like, kind of hearing the voice, or like viewing this little boy, basically, in my case, saying that to you, you're just like, just shut up. Like your opinion doesn't matter to me, basically. And detaching this inner negative self-talk from myself in this way, like it's hard to explain, because like the negative self-talk, I don't view myself saying that, but it's still, I view it as part of myself. But this kind of detachment from me as a person, as in like taking the negative self-talk and viewing like a bully saying that, basically, it really helps to get the distance. I need to be like, actually, this is bullshit, and that's really helpful so far. I do have to pay attention that I keep this up. Like, in therapy, I had a lot of things where after a while things started to slip again. So it would be nice to not have that with this. But yeah, we will see how that develops. Also, reading the book in general has helped me. Like, I think I mentioned before that the reason why I chose to do the book right now, like do the course right now, is that there are a lot of things happening in my life, and like basically my old routine doesn't work anymore because I graduated, I'm not a student anymore, so the routine I got from classwork and everything is just gone. And I'm holding up pretty fine. I'm getting used to my 9 to 5 and everything. But the book also served as a kind of reminder for myself to actually take care of myself, to not let the things that I know help me slip or something, or like the parts of my schedule that I can keep. For example, for myself, I told myself I'll have a work day from 9 to 1 and then from 2 to 6 p.m. Oftentimes a little bit longer, but like those are my rough work hours, and they still work for me on the days that I don't work on my 9 to 5 job. And like I said, the book really, really helps to not let these things slip, because it's, it reminds me of paying attention to that. So just for that fact alone, the book is really, really nice. A few things happened this week that didn't work out that well for me, but you'll see that in the upcoming clips. Another daily task for this week, besides the morning pages, was to read the affirmations from the book. The first part of that was to read the principles in the beginning of the book, and I have to admit these didn't really connect that much with me. Some of those focus on allowing yourself to be creative at all, and since I'm used to being creative, also as part of my degree and job, I didn't really feel any resistance to those. They weren't wrong or anything, it's just not what I needed. What I personally struggle with is actually making time for being creative, and I view things that are fun as less important or less productive, even though those really aren't. Also, to simply trust my creativity is something that's hard for me, because I guess I'm somewhat of a control freak in some areas of my life, and just letting the art happen without too much of a plan brings the risk of quote-unquote wasting time. Or so my
inner critic or whoever tells me. This is also a realization I've come to again and again while reading those principles, but even more so reading my own affirmations. However, I haven't been able to do anything with this as of now, but maybe that'll change in the future. Maybe I just need to bring some time windows into my schedule to allow myself to just play around with no goal in mind. Which brings us to the allowing myself to do things that are fun, even if they feel less important or less productive. In conclusion, fuck perfectionism. Actually, taking 3 of my self-written affirmations from last week and writing those down 5 times each every day was the other part of this exercise. I first read them all, then made a little mark next to the affirmations that made me cringe or evoke similar feelings. And in the end, those that did so the most were actually all related to the ones that disconnect my self-worth from my art or the time and energy from the worth of my art. Which is kind of scary to think about, because I hate that thought very much, but apparently it's also still very much part of my core beliefs. At least if it comes to my own worth. A big part for me is still that my brain directly connects the time and energy I put into my artworks with its worth itself. So the more time/energy I put in, the more the artwork is worth to me, but only if it actually looks good enough. Which in itself is actually like a very toxic thing. And combined with the fact that my self-worth is also directly linked to the worth of my artworks, I don't know about you, but I do get why I developed the workaholic mindset, even though I really hate that kind of mindset. At one point, I also realized that writing down those affirmations didn't necessarily serve to accept them anymore, but to rather cement them into my brain. So that was a big step that made me very happy. I didn't cringe much anymore, and instead consciously reminded myself of these sentences, so that I'd also remember them in situations where I did overwork a picture because the more time the better, or where my self-esteem took a hit because of a not so good picture I made. And you know what? That made me very happy. That's an achievement for the week. The next step was to have a look at how I spent my time and potentially rethink it to find little pockets of time during which I could take care of my artistic child. And the first step for that was to write down the 6 things I spent the most time on this week specifically. Since I had just started my new job and had a lot to get used to and take care of in general, I spent way more time than I thought on reviewing my notes every day. This will take way less time as soon as I've gotten used to the routine, but even then I was surprised to see just how much more time I spent on work-related things instead of things like art or spending time with my friends. For now, I'll just keep in mind how unbalanced my schedule is, and it has already gotten a bit better. But if it stays like this, I'll have to figure out how to spend, way less time preparing and reviewing my 9 to 5 or other job-related things. Because another thing I definitely want to be faster with is video editing. However, I'm also already doing that, and a lot of time I could be saving is related to understanding the program and just finding a process that works for myself. For example, I've moved around some steps in my last 3 videos I made, and just by doing this, my process has been considerably faster than before. So this is also another thing I'll keep an eye on and take appropriate measures if I don't get much faster as I get used to the editing program. One way to do so could be taking an online course for beginners, since I'm mostly self-taught in the video editing area, and also upgrading my camera. But for now, I don't really have the resources for either of those, but I've put them on my future goals list already, so hopefully I can get to that rather sooner than later. So after taking a check-in of how I do spend my time, I was supposed to make a list of things I enjoy doing and would like to be doing more often. The thing that surprised me here was that I knew I did a lot of these things, at least in the last few months, but I literally couldn't remember when. Putting down the date I last did the various things was part of the exercise, and I really had to guess for almost all of them. And of course, you can't remember everything and the date you did it, but I think for me it's more related to the fact that I don't allow myself to fully enjoy the things I'm doing, even if I do like them. Like, for example, one thing on my list was taking a relaxing bath, but I also don't remember when I was actually able to properly relax the last time I took one. Every time I tried, I was thinking about something that was bothering me or something I had to do, or even the relaxing bath itself was just one more thing on my to do list in an attempt to take a break. So that's not really healthy. Luckily, the last part of this exercise was to put 2 things from the list of 20 and plan them for the upcoming days. And for those, I decided to sit in the garden and read a book with no distraction and also go to a cafe to sketch because I haven't been doing that in ages either.
Hi Felix. Hallo Felix. How you doing? What is up, my Vater? You old man. You are an old man.
The last group of exercises was once again in relation to how I actually want to spend my time, and for that I had to make a pie chart of the different areas of my life first. I changed the categories a little bit from what the book tells you, so mine were breaks and relaxation, play, work, friends, adventure, and practice. And putting down the dots for each slice was a little bit complicated, because for example, the category of work, play, and practice overlap in my case, at least for art. So in the end, I just went with my gut feeling. The final chart itself was no big surprise to me, but seeing it written down made it feel way more real and made the difference between the categories feel way more real. I mean, I enjoy my work, but I don't want that slice to be so much bigger than the rest. Honestly, one of my bigger takeaways was also that I can't wait for my friends' lives to calm down a little too, so that we can actually meet up again. I'm keeping it at an okay level by discording or texting a lot, but man, I really can't wait for mine and their schedules to clear up a little and settle down in general so that we can actually make proper plans again. The next thing I had to do was write down 10 small changes I'd like to make in my life. And I realized that mine were all things that I had written about during my morning pages before. So apparently I'm starting to live my life more consciously, because usually I feel like I would have forgotten many of those smaller things. And I'm not gonna lie, many of the things I had written down and kind of had on my mind for the last few days were things I could get done fairly quickly, like introducing my 5-minute meditations back into my workday or reduce my to-read pile of books. But luckily the last step was actually to take one of those things and get it done right away. And I also got a little spoiler for you. Since writing those things down, I have dealt with multiple other things as well, and for the others I picked specific days I would get them done. So those are big steps I'm taking towards the right direction.
So, I just finished the plans for the second week of the Artist Way, and I gotta say, just the fact that the book reminded me to check in with how I spend my time and how I would like to spend my time, even more importantly, helped me manage my available time in the day so much better. Like, instead of letting the work control the time I spend on it, I scheduled a specific amount of time for some tasks and let that control how much time I spend on it. For example, I decided that I would work on the YouTube video for an hour, and that made the editing process faster because I was way less perfectionistic. But I still achieved the desired level of quality, I guess. Another example is also that there was this one phone call that I had to make, which was not technically not an important, well, it was an important phone call, but like no dramatic, like it was just a doctor's appointment basically. But for reasons I was very nervous about it, so I was stressing myself out for an hour, like what am I gonna say? What could the person on the phone say? What, you know, like what are the questions they could ask me and stuff like that. And just because the book made me, I don't know, spend my time more consciously, I guess, I realized that I was absolutely wasting the time. So somehow this made me suddenly way less nervous, and I just got the phone call over with. Like, it was so much easier. Also just the fact that, you know, like I said, it made me think about how I do spend my time and how I would like to spend my time instead. You know, with the exercise of like 20 things I would like to do, like that one specifically, helped me to be like, okay, right now, taking the example of the phone call again, I'm stressing myself out over this phone call, and instead I could be playing Baldur's Gate or something, or like, you know, get my to-do list done faster to have more time to play Baldur's Gate. So that alone was a big achievement for this week. I mean, there were a lot of things that didn't resonate with me that much, but you know, it's unrealistic to expect everything to have like life-changing consequences or something. Another thing that was important to me this week is that I started taking my 5-minute breaks again. I started doing them during therapy because, you know, my therapist advised me to. And basically I work with the Pomodoro method, like the one where you work for 25 minutes, then take a 5-minute break, then work for 25 minutes again and take another 5-minute break. I think you're supposed to have like the third break be 15 minutes long. I don't really do that because like 5 minutes is enough for me. But I also sometimes take smaller breaks in between. You know, that's just the version of it that works best for me. However, I've stopped doing that because I don't have the time to take a break right now, which that's bullshit. But, you know, my workaholic brain was telling me that, and I just wasn't aware of the fact that, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but basically I wasn't aware of the fact that I was doing it, kind of. But anyways, I started taking those breaks again, and oh my god, it helps me declutter my brain so much. Because the way I take my 5-minute breaks is that I meditate, I guess. But like, I think with meditation you're supposed to like try not to think. For me, instead I just like sit down or lay down on the ground on my bed, something, and just let my thoughts go wherever they want to. And a lot of times, or every time, there are a lot of smaller things that I get reminded of that are like probably bouncing around in my head subconsciously, like texting a friend back, making an appointment, just cleaning my kitchen, like smaller things like that I tend to forget in favor of like bigger, more important things like work or something like that. So just doing that helps me, first of all, calm down, remember those smaller things, because for example, like cleaning my kitchen, if I just forget about it for days, it never gets too bad, but like a cluttered kitchen is, you know, visual clutter still stresses oneself out, I guess. So those two things. And also it helps me not overwork illustrations, for example. Like if I take the 5-minute break, actually get up, make a tea, meditate in my bedroom, something like that, I have fresher eyes, or like I'm out of the flow, which you might think is bad, but actually it's, in my case, a lot of time it's actually good, because then I can have a look at the picture like more objectively, I guess. You know, like I'm like, oh, I got actually lost in this one corner that I zoomed in, and I'm overworking that corner, or like those details, like no one's gonna see them, and the time I spend on these details that no one's gonna see, I might as well spend on something else. So yeah, that one is not exactly part of any of the exercises. However, the book and the exercises in the book helped me pick that habit up again. So that's great. And this actually brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed this, and maybe you even got a little bit of inspiration for your own life. But for now, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and bye bye.